All right, we're going to do glamour on the astral plane today, which is known as true glamour, essentially. This should be quite interesting. We'll see how far we get. Okay. I have dealt with the problem of illusion or glamour on the mental plane. I dealt with it succinctly and briefly, pointing out that it is not primarily the major problem of this group of aspirants, but that they, along with the world aspirant humanity, are primarily occupied with glamour. It's just glamour as opposed to illusion on the mental plane. Those aspirants who stand in the forefront of humanity and whose task it is to confront the world glamour and forge a way through it have the task of releasing soul energy and mind potency. Among these pioneering souls, you should take your stand, realizing the magnitude of the opportunity and the immense, the imminence of the hour of release. Let's read that again. Among these pioneering souls, you should take your stand, realizing the magnitude of the opportunity and the imminence of the hour of release. You stand on the verge of accepted discipleship. This means that you will shortly have to add to your battle with glamour that of the battle with illusion. Are you strong enough for this? Forget not that a disciple who is dealing with the aspiration of his nature and who is also wrestling with the problems that result from mental polarization and awareness and with the energies which become active through soul contact is rapidly becoming an integrated personality. And that is the hallmark, I want to say, of that, right? Well, this is the process. This is the integration. Right? His task is not therefore easy and calls for the focused activity of his best self. By that phrase, I mean the soul and the aspirational personality. Already you are battling somewhat with the illusion of ideas with which I dealt in my last instruction. You are thus beginning to develop that discrimination which will lead to right choice of life themes. In this instruction, I seek to cast some light upon the glamour which confronts the disciple as an individual and also consider the aspect of glamour with which he must deal as a world server in training. Speaking symbolically, I would say that the planetary astral body, viewing it from soul levels, is lost in the depths of a surrounding fog. When at night you look at some clear sky, you see the stars and suns and planets shining with a clear, cold brilliancy and with a twinkling, blazing light which penetrates for many millions of miles, or light years as they are called, until the human eye registers them and records the existence of these shining stars. Looking, however, at the astral body of the planet, could you but do so, you would see no such clear shining, but simply a murky ball of seeming steam and mist and fog. This fog is of a density and thickness which would indicate not only impenetrability, but also those conditions which are unfavorable to life. Yet we pass and come and go. We, the teachers on the inner side, and in that fog, seeing all things mishappen and distorted, labor the sons of men. Some are so habituated to the fog and the density that they remain oblivious to its existence, regarding it as right and good and the unchangeable place of their daily life. Others have caught faint glimpses of a clearer world wherein more perfect forms and shapes can be seen and where the fog hides not a dimly sensed reality, though what that reality may be, they know not. Still others, such as yourself, see before you an open path leading to the clear light of day. You know not yet, however, that as you tread the path, you must, on the path itself, work actively and intelligently with the surrounding glamour. following a trail blazed by those who have liberated themselves from the environing mists and passed on into a world of clear horizons. So much of the time spent by disciples on the path is a process of almost cyclic immersion in glamour and fog, alternating with hours of clarity and vision. That seems to be quite accurate. And that seems to be natural process as those alternating with the hours of clarity and vision become longer and the hours of glamour and fog become less. I don't see that as being like one instant where that's all gone. That doesn't seem to be the case. It seems to be where it is alternating, and the clarity takes over slowly as these glamours are dissipated. There are 4 things which you who seek to work with glamour need to grasp. 4 basic recognitions which, when understood, will serve to clear, enlighten, and therefore straighten your way. 1, each human being stands in an environing world of glamour, which is the result of his own past with its wrong thinking, selfish desires, and misinterpretation of the purpose of life. There is or has been no comprehension of the intended life purpose as visioned by the soul, and there cannot be until there is some definite organization of the mental body. B, his family desired life, both past and present, just becomes increasingly potent as evolution proceeds, and the desired life of the family unit becomes marked and emphasized, constituting then inherited and demonstrated psychological tendencies and characteristics. C, national glamour, which is the sum total of the desired life, plus the illusions of any nation. These we term national characteristics, and they are so persistent and marked that they are usually recognized as embodying national psychological traits. These are, of course, based on race tendencies, past history, and world interrelations, but constitute in themselves a glamorous condition out of which every nation must work as it marches on towards the realization of and identification with reality. And the United States, being a 6th-rate country, make it rather difficult at this point. We'll study that later on in this book and see how that works out. I found it this morning. That'll come up in probably next week. And that's exciting because the study of the rays is really, it's really crucial in all of this as we begin to understand those things. D, an extension of the above idea into what we call racial glamour, using the word race to mean the human race. This constitutes a very ancient glamour, or almost a series of glamours of entrenched desires, potent aspirations of some kind, and definitely human-made forms, which, fluidic, enveloping, and pulsating with dynamic life, seek to hold the consciousness of humanity upon the astral plane. Such a glamorous concept is that of money and its materialistic value. This glamorous desire is like a dense, widely distributed fog, cutting off the vision of truth and distorting a very large number of human values. So each human being stands in the environing world of glamour, which is the result of those things we just talked about. 2, this fog, this glamour, which envelops humanity at this time, must be realized as a definite, substantial thing and must be dealt with as such. I think it's very clear to us who are reading this right now that it is a definite, substantial thing. The disciple or aspirant who is seeking to dispel glamour, either in his own life or as service rendered to the world, must recognize that he is working with substance, with the breaking up of the forms which it has assumed, and with the dissipation of a material, all enveloping substance. Material in the same sense as thought forms are substantial things, but, and here's a point of importance, of less substantial nature than the forms of glamour found upon the astral plane. All right, we should read that again. The disciple or aspirant who is seeking to dispel glamour, either in his own life or as a service rendered to the world, must recognize that he is working with substance, with the breaking up of the forms which it has assumed, and with the dissipation of a material, all-enveloping substance. Material in the same sense as thought forms are substantial things, but of a less substantial nature than the forms of glamour found upon the astral plane. Material in the same sense as thought forms are substantial things, but of a less substantial nature than the forms of glamour found upon the astral plane. We are quite willing to remember that thoughts are things and that they have a form life and a purpose of their own, but they have a more unique and separative existence and more clearly defined, but they have a more unique and separative existence and more clearly defined and more definite outlines. The forms of glamour on the astral plane are even more substantial, but are less clearly defined. Thought forms are dynamic, penetrating, clear-cut, and outlined. Glamours are smothering, vague, and enveloping. In them, a person is immersed as in the ocean or in a sea of fog. With thought forms, he is confronted or faced, but not immersed. It might almost be said that the astral body of a person comes into being as part of the general world glamour. It is difficult for him to differentiate between his own astral body and the glamours which affect and sway and submerge him. His problem upon the mental plane is more clearly defined, even if it is equally difficult. And then DK talks about we have fire hitting the waters and creating this fog and miasmas, and it takes considerable work to dissipate that fog and then be standing in the light of day after that process is complete, right? And it is a process, and it just as in we see that in science, we can see it in this as well. 3, astral glamour is a form of energy and an energy of great potency owing to 3 factors. It is of such an ancient rhythm, being inherent in astral substance itself, that it is most difficult for a human being to become aware of it or to understand it. It is the result of the age-long activity of human desire. See, and this is the absolute awesomeness of these books, because it is difficult to become aware of these things in our own being. People have told us, saints, sages, and mystics have told us for a long time to look at ourselves, but it has not been pointed in the way that it is in the blue books. it it has not been pinpointed in any of the other books that I've seen as well. You can search the books, you can look through the Vedas, you can look through the Upanishads, you can look through, all these other books. I don't see it as where, and you can look through the other esoteric traditions and spend much time diving into all of that to come up with a dry hole as where this is out there. This is showing us directly in our face now. So now, just as I'm going to say this, and I don't know if this is accurate or not. These thought forms that are dynamic, penetrating, clear, and outlined. Well, this book's thought form is dynamic, penetrating, clear, and outlined, and it contains all of this information. So what does that mean? How much? This is like these books are like bombs. This book is like a bomb for the astral plane and for Glamour. It has the ability to destroy Glamour and illusion, all contained inside of this. I cannot say enough about these books. I'm so thankful that I was turned on to them and was really, it was told to me, hey, listen, you don't need anything else. And I was searching everywhere, and it was like, Carla, our astrologer and, and mentor, has said, you don't need anything else. And everything else that you're doing would be a distraction and cause issues. Focus on this. If you really want to grow, if you want the growth and you want to understand and you're really pushing and you think this is, a life where you're going to, try to get ahead in this, then, concentrate here. To the point where even the references that are in the books for the other books don't necessarily even need to go to. Just literally stay in these books and you will get everything that you need and more. And I find this, this to be very true on many more levels than I initially realized, because you think, well, I still have to, at least study these references over here, or I have to look and listen to this type of meditation, and I have to put these pieces together. You don't have to do any of that. Actually, that's a glamour. That's some level of spiritual glamour, or that's some illusion that you have about yourself. You don't need to do that because it ends up all coming together anyway. So there's that. Okay, I didn't mean to go off on that, but it's amazing. 3, astral glamour is a form of energy and an energy of great potency, owing to 3 factors. We already talked about this, but I'm going to read it again. It is of such an ancient rhythm, being inherent in astral substance itself, that it is most difficult for a human being to become aware of it or to understand it. It is the result of the age-long activity of human desire. And man, if you really contemplate the age-long activity of human desire, many of them are very simple desires where we, how many can you possibly have? But as they can be very distorted, and we need to work through them as well, right? Because our desires, our ancient desires, much different than intelligent, use of this nature now. It is a corporate part of man's own energy nature, and therefore constitutes for him the line of least resistance. It is part of a great world process, and therefore a part of the individual life process also, and is in itself not wrong, but an aspect of reality. But an aspect of reality. It's not wrong, but an aspect of reality. It's not the whole thing, right? So, and that's kind of what we said. We need to, this is it's intelligent, it's creative. It needs to be used properly. Right? This realization necessarily complicates man's thought about it. Right. You just have to discern for yourself what's necessary and what's not necessary, and what's glamour, what's not glamour, what's illusion, what's not illusion. This is a process. It is likewise definitely Atlantean in nature, being brought to a very high point of development in that race. It can therefore only be finally dissipated by the Aryan race using the right technique. This is the Aryan being our time, the Atlantean being the previous, before who developed the astral plane, and the Lemurians before them who developed the physical plane. Right. The individual who is learning to dissipate glamour has to do two things: stand in spiritual being and keep the mind steady in the light. And you have to do that. It's not a matter of whether you can or can't. You have to, because even still in the beginning of this, these glamours arise in that they do grab us and get us sidetracked. They will bring us down different rabbit holes, and there will be glamour standing there waiting for us, and we will have to work through these things. From this, it will be apparent that the energy of the astral plane, as it expresses itself in the sentient desire life of the race, produces the major glamours of humanity, and can only be dissipated, dispersed, and dispelled by the bringing in of the higher energy of mind, motivated by the soul. The glamours which hold humanity in thrall are, and this is such a deep thing here. It's like we're picking up where the Atlanteans left off. And guess, if we have studied that or know anything at all about it, they brought the astral plane up to unimaginable heights of advancement. And now we are to develop the mental nature, but we're still dealing on the astral, right? So we're picking up where that was left off, and it was left off at a freaking high point, right? So the glamours which hold humanity in thrall are the glamour of materiality, the glamour of sentiment, the glamour of devotion, the glamour of the pairs of opposites, and the glamours of the path. It's a constant process of clearing ourselves, essentially. But let me now elucidate these glamours for you a little more in detail. Okay, so we're going to go through these, and this is huge. The glamour of materiality is the cause of all the present world distress, for what we call the economic problem is simply the result of this particular glamour. Absolutely, so crystal clear to see this, and I hope it is for everyone, for anyone who listens to this. The economic problem is simply the result of the glamour of materiality. We want to freaking hoard everything right now. We're hoarders, and we want crap that we don't even want, and we just want it. And because we want it, it's there. And your kids want stuff, and they just want it, just to want it and have it for a minute, argue over it, and then put it in a box and hoard it. That this is an insane type of a thing. It's so clearly astral. It's so reflective of humanity's astral nature. It's this is something that we have to work through and explain to them so that we can get through this together, essentially. And but first it needs to be recognized in ourselves and then expressed with logic to as many as we can express it to, because this is dumb. It's causing problems. It is not creating jobs. It's not creating opportunity. It's creating problems. It's creating glamour. It's creating illusion and an energetic mess, as DK himself expressed earlier in this book. So down the ages, this glamour has held the race increasingly interested. Until today, the entire world has been swept into a rhythm of money interest, because in order to have that garbage, we have to have money. And because of this, it's just the implications. We have to really look at the implications of our desires from the backwards. We have to induce and deduce these issues and look at them from a whole, and then also see where this goes and what the future implications will be if we don't dissipate this now in ourselves and help in others. A rhythm emanating from soul levels has always existed, being established by those who have freed themselves from the control of material requirements, from the thraldom of money and the love of possessions. So let's say that again. A rhythm emanating from soul levels has always existed. So you can do this. This is not far off for us. This is one of the things that it appears can be it's very doable, because it has always existed and emanated from soul levels, being established by those who have freed themselves from the control of material requirements, from the thraldom of money, and from the love of possessions. These thoughts, and this is placed in here by the hierarchy, by the higher selves, by the kingdom of souls, who've all dissipated this in themselves, the kingdom of God, however you want to look at it, it's emanating from there to put this crap away, right? Put it away. It's time to move on. Recognize it for what it is, put it in its right place, learn the esoteric value of money as being needed for your spiritual growth and the spiritual growth of others, and move on, and move on intelligently. Today, that higher rhythm is commensurate with the lower rhythmic glamour. Ooh, this is going to be good here. And hence, the whole world is thinking in terms of the way out from this present material impasse. So we're at that point of equilibrium, or balance point, or at the preface of this thing. Those souls who stand in the light to be found upon the mountaintop of liberation, and those who are advancing upward out of the fogs of materiality, are now sufficient in numbers to do some definite work in connection with the dissipation of this glamour. So we can do this. Once we can see it from the other side of this, we can, begin to do this work. The influence of their thoughts and words and lives can and will bring about a readjustment of values and a new standard of living for the race based upon clear vision, a correct sense of proportion, and a realization of the true nature of the relationship existing between soul and form, between spirit and matter, that which will meet a need that is vital and real ever exists within the divine plan, that which is unnecessary to the right expression of divinity and to a full and rich life can be gained and can be possessed, but only through the loss of the more real and the negation of the essential. Now, this does not mean, however, the World Economic Forum is correct in all their trash talk. Let's be real about it. We're not listening. They are not the minds that we want to listen to. This is not the illumined ones who are going to bring in and dissipate this glamour in a balanced and proportioned way. That would be a very destructive aspect of this. It would not be a precipitating force. That is very deep. This world economic problem is way beyond this video and what we're talking about here, and the materiality of this and this glamour is very much huge. It can be contemplated for, who knows? I couldn't even imagine. We could sit here and talk through this stuff about the corruption, about the lies, about the deceit, about how, legal ways to conduct business are kept from us that would benefit, all of us. And, the true nature of the system as it should be transparently, but is fogged over and damaging and takes advantage of, our unknowingness, or, because I wouldn't use the word ignorance in that particular fashion, but it's a true word. I mean, ignorance is the right word, but we are unknowingly being duped without, because how can you possibly understand the legalese when it's hidden? Nobody's going to teach us. We just go about, and then it's like, we're just being taken advantage of at every turn at this point. So, and then this energy, this thraldom, this glamour of materiality keeps us going in that somehow without a full stop. There has to be a full stop, from my opinion. We have to go, all right, that's it. The transition has to be made from considering those that have money and power and putting those two things together and really looking at, who we need to judge a man by his mind, and that who should be in charge of things. Right, not just because you managed to accumulate all of this money, and through whatever selfish practice it is that you've conjured up in order to gain all of that for selfish reasons. We need to look at for the people who are really truly illuminated, who can bring real change with the proper ideas that can be ideals, and who can really make sense of this logically and bring reason and a sense of proportion and balance, right? So anyway, I didn't mean to go off on that. It's just so deep. That's what happens when we study these books. You know, there should not be any anticipation of reading these books and then just being done with it. And we need to stir up contemplation in us. Just stir up, you know, all the muck that's on the bottom, that was brought up during these Pluto transits that just passed. And now, being that you know, the Pluto transit is passed in the United States, we need to look with it clear-eyed and confront it, because it can be confronted now that it's over. And we can look directly at it. It doesn't have to be hidden anymore. And we can bring this out. It can be brought out now. And I want to say that there's direct implications, and our ability to dissipate what was brought up, the glamours that were included in it, would be much more prevalent. We can do this work more easily right now. And that is, and we're doing it. We're dropping these bombs of knowledge from the masters on humanity. Pretty cool. All right. Students, however, need to remember that that which is necessary varies according to the stage of evolution which has been reached by an individual. For some people, for instance, the possession of that which is material may be as great a spiritual experience and as potent a teacher in life expression as the more elevated and less material requirements of the mystic or hermit. Certainly, and that's why we're talking about, you know, we need to be realistic as to what is needed. Like, I don't need anything per se. And, you know, this little room that I have, I know that I don't own an atom in this of material in this world. This is my room that I'm in here, right? This is where I, you know, my sanctuary, my sanctum, if you will. This is my place of quiet, my place of study, my place to meditate, contemplate. I'm out of the elements. This is my place of warmth. I don't need much more than this. Everything else going on around me is for kids and family, and it's what they need, right? So there's a difference from what I need and what the children need and what families need, and we all have a different level of, we're all at a different level here. We can be in the world and not of it. We can be a mystic or a hermit per se, you know, and still be in and around things and life and material possessions. We need cars. We need things to function here. We can't just give up. We're not meant to give up. We weren't born in India. We weren't born next to Arunachala. and we don't need to be going and getting in a cave. We're born here. We're meant to work here. You're given a job. You have needs and requirements, and you have to provide and do certain, we have obligations. So we need, these things all need to be looked at. It doesn't mean that you need to be attached to any of it. It's when there's that energetic or magnetic attachment to things that's holding us, that's where the issues lie. And if you can somehow recognize those magnetic attractions, you can break those chains, I want to say. They will get broken on the path. It's inevitable. However, if you want to do it smoothly, identify it and break from it, more efficiently, I guess you could say. It doesn't mean, you don't have to sell everything and burn it all down. That's a wrong idea. That's misappropriation of this whole thing. We don't do that. We have to be intelligent. We are rated as regards action. Okay, here you're about to get some information on this. We are rated as regards action and point of view by our place upon the ladder of evolution. We are rated really by our point of view and not by our demand upon life. So you could be very wealthy and appear to be very successful and very affluent, or however you want to call it. That could be the outward appearance, but you're not judged on that. You're judged by your point of view, and not by our demand upon it. You're judged by the mind and what your intentions are. The spiritually minded man, and the man who has set his feet upon the path of probation and who fails to attempt the expression of that which he believes, will be judged as caustically and pay as high as a price as does the pure materialist, the man whose desires center around substantial effects. Bear this in mind and sit not in the seat of the judge or the scornful. So, and that's that's biblical, right? Don't judge, refrain from judgment, because we know not how our judgment is colored. And that's the deeper end of it. We don't know how our judgment is colored by which glamour or which illusion yet. You don't see the big picture. We're not walking in the light of day yet. We are not fully aware of the roles others are playing and the lives that they're living out. You have to figure out yours first before you can ever, make any judgment of others. You have to find out where you're at on the ladder potentially, in order to even glimpse at where another might be, and then you could be very wrong. So we cannot, don't judge. I'm going to read this again, and then we're going to call it here for the day. But we are rated as regards action and point of view by our place upon the ladder and of evolution. We are rated really by our point of view and not by our demand upon life. The spiritually minded man, and the man who has set his feet upon the path of probation and who fails to attempt the expression of that which he believes, so we can't cower, right? That's what it says. You cannot be a coward. You must stand up for what you believe. If you fail to attempt the expression of that which he believes, he will be judged and caustically as caustically and pay as high a price as does the pure materialist. So you went to the other end of the spectrum, and you will get your butt kicked back, because you're pushing against the polarity, the far end of the polarity, and energetically speaking, if I could say that there's an equipoise or a counterpoise there, and when you get too close to that electric fence, you will get zapped, because you made a mistake of getting too close to that electric fence. And for whatever reason you got there, and guess what? You will know, and you will recognize, and you will correct yourself by not touching that fence anymore. And I think that was pretty simple. Be judged as caustically and pay as high a price as does the pure materialist, the man who desires center around substantial effects. Bear this in mind, and sit not in the seat of the judge or the scornful. And, as much as we're dealing with this throughout the day, and we're looking at these things, and we're aware, and we're observing, it's equally as important to meditate and get clear ourselves out, and just spend time doing absolutely nothing, and spend time in beingness, and really observing this, and feeling that there is nothing there, and really being real with ourselves for some time there. We got, what are the three pillars of this? It's ultimately study, contemplation, and meditation, I want to say. And if that's not the three pillars, it's very close. We must study, we must build up our mental abilities. We must bring ourselves higher up through more higher knowledge. Meditation is often misunderstood as you have to sit crisscross applesauce and follow your breath, and maybe that is certainly true in the beginning of the path. I mean, that's what we do, but believe me, after years of that, you can put yourself in a state of meditation rather quickly and be meditating while you're doing other things, and through that you become the observer, and that process happens naturally. Our mentor would tell you that she does not meditate at all, was never a big meditator. Now, she had meditated, we all meditate here and there, but she does not meditate now, because her life is a meditation. She is in the state of meditation, and I don't want to get too deep into into her personally, but this is our life becomes, that's Raja Yoga, is yoga of the mind, and you are in meditation throughout the day, even while you're going about doing things. Let's finish this glamour of materiality. even though we really went off on this, I want to come to a nice stopping point so we can continue, so we have a good place to pick up tomorrow or Monday. But rather, today, the glamour of materiality is lessening perceptibly. The peoples of the world are entering the wilderness experience and will find in the wilderness how little is required for full living, true experience, and real happiness. This wilderness experience, the expression of this, can be very easily seen in all the people who want to go RVing. They want to simplify their lives. They want to buy tiny houses. They just want this simple life. They know that it can be more simple. They've done things the other way where it was very complex and materialistic. They saw that, lived it. Now we move on and we go, okay, now I want to go be simple. That doesn't mean you leave the glamour of this thing, the complexity over here, for the glamour of the simplicity over here. You can just as easily get trapped over in this as we were in that. The gluttonous desire for possessions is not regarded as so reputable a desire as formerly, and the desire for riches is not producing the clutching hands as earlier in racial history. Things and possessions are slipping out of the hands which have hitherto tightly held them, and only when men stand with empty hands and a realized new standard of values do they again acquire the right to own and to possess. When desire is absent and the man seeks nothing for the separated self, the responsibility of material wealth can again be handed back to man, but his point of view will then be free from that particular glamour, and the fogs of astral desire will be lessened. Illusion in many forms may still hold sway, but the glamour of materiality will be gone. It is the first destined to disappear. You know, because even if you had everything in the world right now, which it would make no difference to you. We look on it as what's required to do the work that we're doing. That's it. You don't have any, you don't go, oh, that's mine, that's mine. No, that's mine. Don't touch my, don't, you know, that's, no, you can't play with my toy. That's, you own things so others can play with your toys. How about that? Students would do well to remember that all forms of possessions and all material objects, whether it is money or a house, a picture, or an automobile, have an intrinsic life of their own, an emanation of their own, and an activity which is essentially that of their own inherent atomic structures, for an atom is a unit of active energy. This produces counterparts in the world of etheric and astral life, though not in the mental world. These subtler forms and distinctive emanations swell the potency of the world desire. They contribute to the world glamour and form part of a great and powerful miasmic world, which is on the involutionary arc, but in which humanity, upon the upward arc, is nevertheless immersed. And that upward arc and evolutionary arc, you know, that is something that I came across rather early in my studies in the secret doctrine. And, you know, those being the that was cosmogenesis and anthropomorphosis. And really we saw the larger aspects of this system, the macrocosmic aspects of the system brought by that. And Master Decay had a big part in those books. And the blue books that we're studying right now are the psychological key to the secret doctrine. You know, so you know, having a background in the secret doctrine is probably good. The Theosophical Society is a great organization. I very much, I respect what they're doing. I'm not a fan of the separation of the teachings because of the way, these organizations have worked out. I'm not obviously, I don't think anybody would be a fan of that, but I very much support the Theosophical Society, and also, you want to support the those that hold the books that we're studying now. I don't know the legal relationships between all of these, but I would say there's certainly some glamour illusion involved in it, and it's not super pleasant. But I would, I don't want to promote studying the secret doctrine. I don't want to make, because those are huge studies. The proem of it may be enough to get a good grasp. The proem, PROEM. And there is an audio book, audio files even on YouTube. They're I think they're 24 hours each. And it may take 5 days to get through all of them, 5 days of straight through. So it may take a month in spare time of getting through those. But I found them when I was doing a lot of heavy driving. It was interesting because I was doing a lot of heavy driving consecutively. So I was listening to the secret doctrine while I was doing that. And then at one point, I was reading the book and following along with it. And then I was reading the book. I don't want to say I've read every word, but I've listened, at minimum, listened to every word. And certainly worth it. Certainly worth the study. But that I don't want to detract from the blue books and the need to study the blue books. So let's keep going. So there's something to that. There. These subtler forms and distinctive emanations swell the potency of the world desire. They contribute to the world glamour and form a great part of the powerful miasmic world, which is on involutionary. So listen, you should know that we're on the evolutionary arc, right? And where this goes for everyone is home. That doesn't mean there aren't other kingdoms or other aspects of this on the involutionary arc, but we are on the evolutionary arc as humanity. Therefore, the guides of the race have felt the necessity of standing by whilst the forces set up by man himself proceed to strip him and thus release him to walk in the wilderness. They felt the necessity of standing by whilst the forces set up by man himself proceed to strip him and thus release him to walk in the wilderness. So you reap what you sow, and we're reaping what we sow, which is fine. We do that. We take on our responsibilities, and we move on. So that's good. There, and what is called straightened circumstances, he can readjust his life and change his way of living, thus discovering that freedom from material things carries with it its own beauty and reward, its own joy and glory. Thus he is liberated to live the life of the mind. We're going to leave it there for today. And then we will pick back up and get into the glamour of sentiment tomorrow or Monday. Because we just are touching on the glamour of materiality. Then we have the sentiment, devotion, pairs of opposites, and the glamours of the path to get through. And we'll do that on the next go. All right. It's the weekend here, so I don't know when you're gonna, but enjoy your time, and let's keep moving forward. All right, thanks.